Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we're going to review OVRDARK, a do not open story VR. It was released on the Steam store May 23rd, 2024 by developer Nox Noctis. It normally retails for $29.99. I received a free Steam key through the Steam Creator Connect program, and I tested out on the Meta Quest 3 using link cable. OVRDARK is the sequel to the non-VR game Do Not Open. OVRDARK is a horror game that has some inspiration from Resident Evil and escape rooms. I would classify this as mostly a horror puzzle experience with some action moments thrown in. And you enter a haunted house against your better judgment, looking to solve the mystery of what happened. And as you explore this haunted mansion, things get weird, things get spooky, and you soon regret your decisions. It did take me a little less than 5 hours to beat the single player campaign. I did get stuck on a few puzzles. I think most people it would take them 4 to 5 hours to beat the game. The game is running on the Unreal Engine 4. On my RTX 3080 on ultra graphical settings, I was getting a steady 90 frames per second for the most part. I did not experience any serious issues or bugs. However, at certain points my flashlight would disappear, but it would always respawn right back on my utility belt. And sometimes I would see my avatar hands drift away from the position of my motion controllers, but I considered both those things to be minor issues that did not affect gameplay. You do have full locomotion along with smooth and snap turning available. You can choose the degree of turn or the speed of turn. There is button crouch available as well, so you can play this game comfortably seated or standing. However, there is no height adjustment, so I did feel like I was a little bit too high off the ground by default. But again, it did not affect gameplay. Visually, I thought the game looked nice, but not great. I thought the visuals were just inconsistent, and some of them were low texture, low resolution compared to others. Overall, the mansion looked good, but the character models did not. Overall, I thought the lighting was good. The flashlight was always useful because it was too dark at times, but here the flashlight was actually a useful object that illuminated well, and I have to give the game kudos for that because a lot of horror games just don't even get that right. The sound mix was also a mixed bag. The voice acting here is not very good. Don't get me wrong, it's not horrible, it's passable, but it's definitely on the wooden side of deliveries. And the spatial audio is just okay. Sometimes you'll be walking around and you'll hear a creepy sound that'll really pick up the tension, but a lot of the times it felt like it just wasn't three-dimensional spatial audio that this game needed. It was more of a stereo kind of audio where you can just tell the general direction of where it came from. But the main problem with the experience is that too often there was just nothing going on. You'd walk from one room to another with not a lot of sounds or music or anything to really bring up the tension in those moments. So while the atmosphere was definitely very good at times, at other times it was just too slow paced or not balanced correctly. The actual gameplay consisted mostly of just puzzles, and most of the puzzles are simply just finding the correct object and knowing where to use it, along with some logic puzzles as well. Some of the puzzles are timed, so you will have to use your wits quickly. As I mentioned, I did get stuck on a few of the puzzles, and I thought most of the puzzles were easy casual level difficulty, but then some of the puzzles were very challenging as well. One of the puzzles I got stuck on was merely because I did not find an object that I needed to find, and it was an object that was in a room that had toxic spores, and I had previously died getting near a toxic spore, so I avoided getting into that room, not knowing that you could quickly get in and out and get the puzzle piece. So I'm not sure I agree with the design of that particular puzzle. Now technically there is no hint system, so if you get stuck on a puzzle you'll just have to figure it out by being extra observant of all your surroundings and carefully explore each room. However, there are certain sections that you can die from, and in those sections, after you'll die, you'll get a clue on what you should have done better. There are some stealth sections in this game, and I did not like those sections. You have to move super slow, and it is very painful if you don't and die and have to repeat it. Luckily, you can save often, so usually dying is not that big of a deal in this game. There's also also some chase sequences, but as long as you improve your stamina by drinking energy drinks and avoid smoking, you should be fine. And there's also some freeze or red light sections where you basically have to stop and stay still. I found this fun the first time, but after that it was just too easy and not much of a challenge. Now there is a story here, but like I mentioned, the voiceovers weren't very good and the story is kind of too cliche. Plus it just didn't make sense of why you wouldn't leave this haunted mansion or why'd you go into it in the first place. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Supposedly you care very much about your neighbors and about finding this woman and her child, but what relationship you have with them is never really explained, or why you'd risk your life instead of just calling the police to help these people. But obviously the story is just there for the horror experience and for the puzzle solving to give you motivation to go from point A to point B, and in that regard the story is fine but just not memorable. Lastly, the VR interactions here are just not very good either. Doors just open, items just go directly into your inventory, and to use them you just hold them near where the object marker tells you. The VR interactions here are just passable but already outdated, especially for 2024 VR. Overall, I do think that OVRDARK, a do not open story, is a nice horror game for what it is. It's an indie horror puzzle game and it's fine. It's definitely better than the average VR horror game. However, after having played Medicine VR, I have to say that I was underwhelmed, and I do believe the asking price is a bit too high for what it is. But like I said, it's nice, it's solid. If I have to rate it, I would give it a solid 6.5 out of 10. I think if you're really into horror games and you really like the classic horror survival formula, if you're looking for a budget Resident Evil, this might be right up your alley, and others might enjoy it more than I did. I just found it too generic. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. If you enjoyed this video review, if you found it useful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the video.